In addition to using relative values in effects, I also like to use reference data in my effects. And if I keep my palettes and presets consistent from show to show to show, I now have a pool of effects ready to go that I can easily deploy and know that I'm going to get a desired look on stage. So let's take a look at some of these types of effects. I have my standard color palettes that I'll use, and then I'll actually create a referenced effect for each different style of effect, so that the sine wave, the square wave, the ramp, and the burst effect. And then I'll put that over a background state so that I can always have a two-color combination ready to go without actually having a very long list of two-color effects. So let's take a look at what I mean. I'm going to create a new effect. I'm going to create effect 821. I'm going to make it an absolute effect. The stock effect has a time of 1 on both actions here, which is kind of more or less equivalent to like that sine wave look. I'm going to come in here, and instead of my first value being 0, I'm going to set that first value to be red. I'm going to go ahead and label this red sine. I'm then going to just take this and I'm going to copy it to effect 822, and I'm going to change my time here from 1 to 0 and my dwell to 1. And now I basically have that burst effect where it's not fading in, just snapping on and fading to a background state. I'm going to label that red burst. And I'm going to do this for the other two types of effects. So red burst, I want to make red ramp, which is just swapping those. 0. So here I have just made the time for the first action 1 second with a dwell of 0, and the time for the second action 0 with a dwell of 1, so that it fades on and then holds to a background state. And then I'm going to copy that one more. And I'm going to make this my square wave or step. I call them step effects. They're not actually step effects, but label that red step. So now, what I have in those 4 effects is I have a red color palette over a background state. So that means that anything that is already in that palette can be used in my show. So if I turn my magic blades on there, I select the pixels and I run my red sine wave, I'm going to get this red sine wave effect over a background state, right? And I can easily switch that to be my burst, which you can see it's got that hard edge on the front end, and it kind of tapers off there towards the end. Ramp, which is kind of a soft front end and a hard stop at the end, or the step effect, which is just kind of that hard edge on both sides. But by making this reference data, there are a couple of advantages to it. I'm not tied to a specific color space, as in using the default HueSat, CMY, or RGB color effects. I also can place this easily over a background state. So I'll never make a red-blue effect. I'll only make a red over a background effect. Because then if I want these to be red and blue, I'll just take those lights and I'll make them blue. And now I have my red running over my background state of blue. And then as I change this type of effect, it's going to just give me that effect over whatever my background state is. And I actually take these types of effects and then I just duplicate them for each color in my standard color palette list. So then I have a very large list of stock effects ready to go. So once I have those 4 types of effects, I'll then go ahead and copy those and make changes to them for each one of my standard color palettes. So here on the next page, you can see I've started to do that for all of the standard color palettes in this show. So I have my red sine, red step, red ramp, red burst, and I've just taken that and I've copied it for each one of these color palettes. So for example, if I want to continue that, I can just come in here and I can actually hold down the Shift key to populate that to the command line. Through 794, copy 2. And now I've made copies of those effects. And I just can come in here and I just have to change what the single value in this effect is. So instead of cyan now, I'm going to have this effect light blue. I'm going to go to my next effect by hitting next. Change that to light blue. Next effect, light blue. Next effect, light blue. And then it's just a matter of going through and labeling those as well. And you can see that's using the next key, and then the up arrow and the delete key allows me to quickly change that label as well. So now I've just created those copies. So now if I go back into Live and I grab my masters, and I grab my pixels, I can quickly run effects in any of my color palettes, and then I can just change the background state so that I never need a two-color effect. I just have single color effects over a background state. And that allows me to just quickly have this tool set that I can easily deploy, so that I have this set of pre-built stock effects ready to go, and then I just copy them into my scene-by-scene organizational tools so that I never actually disturb the base stock effects. Another type of reference data effect, particularly useful with color and particularly useful if you're doing one-offs, such as, again, busking music, this is very helpful, is what I call the A-B color effect. So the idea behind an A-B color effect is leveraging the power of reference data in an effect, and then just copying targets into those color palettes to change that effect on the fly. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to make two new color palettes. I'm going to make color palette A and color palette B. I'm just going to copy those in. So here I have color palette A and color palette B. They are currently empty color palettes. There's nothing in them right now. I'm also going to create a color palette A and a color palette B effect that is using this same ideology. So for example, I'm going to just take effect this through that. I'm going to copy it over here. I'll relabel these. So now I have my A-B color sign, color step, color ramp, and color burst. And what I've done in these effects, if we look at the editor, is in these four types of effects, I have referenced my two empty color palettes, color palette A and color palette B. Now right now there is nothing in these. However, if I copy other color palettes to these, it's going to automatically repopulate my effect. So for example, if I take red, copy to color palette A, purple, copy to color palette B, and now I'm take those magic blades and I run that effect, it's going to run my A-B sine wave, or my color step, right, of red over purple. Right? This isn't that different than what we've done before, but where this becomes really powerful, particularly in a on-the-fly environment, is if I now want these effects to be between green and yellow. I just take my green color palette, copy it into red. I take my yellow color palette, I copy it into color B, and now it's running this two-color schema. So this is a really good thing you can tie in with other macros or other ways of working, so that on the fly, I only have one set of effects that I'm using. And what's nice is because it's referencing these two color palettes that are changing, I can just run any of these effects, and it's going to reference that data, because it's the reference data that's changing, it's not the effect that is changing. So by using reference data and color effects, I can make sure that I have effects ready to go that can operate on every fixture in my rig, regardless of its color mixing type, as long as it's recorded into those color palettes.